Hey everyone, so welcome to the Essentials channel today. So this is where we always do our project reviews, analysis and things and frameworks that we always take note of as a consumer and of course agent POV. So if you like my content so far, please remember to share, like and subscribe as I continue staying motivated. I know I've been saying this many times, but it really contributes to my hard work as well as my motivation to continue creating this content for you. So today is part 2 of the selection essentials. The last time round we talked about project selection. What are the frameworks and the guidelines to choose a good project? Right now is of course the unit selection framework. So I just want to put a note here for everybody. With the improvement of URA policies right now, you will see that over the years, right, they have already improved a lot of their layouts, their unit distribution, the site plan, so on and so forth, to make sure that the livability factors are met. So because the URA vision is definitely a lot clearer now, right? The URA and the government's vision in terms of property is to make sure in order to have sustainable pricing, the livability factors must be met. And with that in mind, it meets the needs. So buying property in Singapore is a need, and from there they structure their policies very clearly is to ensure products are very livable today so that there will always be an exit. That's why you start to see units becoming better and better, and in today's market, am I right to say, actually, if you take a clear look around the projects today, it's quite hard to find a bad layout unit in terms of the respective projects. It's quite hard to find units with bad livability. Maybe it's a bit lousier facing than the others, but in terms of livability, it is still livable. And with that in mind, there will always be an exit, whether is it a slight disadvantage in views, floorings, facings, so on and so forth. There will still be a willing buyer willing to take over the unit, maybe with just a slight adjustment in prices. You will not see that kind of huge fluctuation because the livability factors are mostly met, and that is the key to sustainable prices. So now to begin, here are all the factors to selecting a right unit that forms the unit selection framework. So the first factor is entry price. Whether is it low floor is better or high floor is better, a block view versus an unblocked view, all depends on entry price. Does it mean that you go for a high floor, you will make lesser as contrary to popular belief and previous school of thought? Next, we will unravel it. Next is of course layout. Layout is key. So we'll run through the respective layouts that are ideal for 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, and we even draw out comparisons between the prices and the unit layouts and the profitability, and you will see from there how a good layout will actually profit more as compared to a not so ideal layout. Next will be of course the demand and supply. Should you go for a 3-bedroom compact or should you go for a 3-bedroom premium? These are things that you would wish that your consultant or whoever your friends will actually highlight this to you, and today I'm standing here as an agent point of view to highlight what will actually entail a good exit strategy. Of course, if we can enter today, catching the exit is key. Alright, I'll give you an example to showcase to you what is the key factor that we use to identify a good exit timing. Alright, I think that's the most important. Buying is easy, but how about the exit? Because exit is the one that ensures whatever that we preach as well as whatever that you saw in terms of prospects of this development will actually materialize. And last but not least, the essentials exit strategy. Identifying the resale buyers is key. And I'm sure you have heard of many different agents or your friends or whoever tell you that, wow, you buy this property in this area, wow, the surrounding HDB upgraders will be able to pay for it. Now, talk is cheap. How can we show you in numbers that these people are able to really afford it, and they will definitely become your future exit strategy and buyers? We will show you with our framework. Alright, so to start off, number 1, entry price. We have this example down here, these 2 scenarios, scenario 1 and scenario 2. Which unit will you buy? This is Commonwealth Towers, a 2-bedroom 753 square feet. 1009 that has a perfect pool view versus 1720 that has a block view. Scenario 2, 2-bedroom 689 square feet, 4107 super high floor unit versus a mid-floor unit at 1807. So these are the 2 common scenarios where we say, should I choose a block view versus a perfect pool view, or should I choose a high floor versus a low floor? Now, many people, based on their exposure to the market, will then tell us now. Last time, this wasn't so exposed in the market. People will always say go for the high floors. But there was this point in the market where affordability is questionable. people who went for the lower floors somehow profited more than the higher floors. Alright, but if we look at it, actually this is all due to entry price at play. Does it mean that you get high floor means cannot make money? We will go to that later again, but we just based on this current scenario right now. We base it on the current scenario right now. Here we have the numbers. This is the block view versus the pool view. 1720 is the one with the block view. Alright, they were actually purchased for 1567 PSF and then sold for 1885 PSF with a profit of 239k. Alright, versus the premium view, the full pool view of unit 1009. Alright, it was bought for 1694 PSF, sold at 1908 PSF, a profit of 161k. Alright, both were bought in May 2014 and 2016, sold in August and April 2022 respectively. So the exit timing is both the same. So we isolate this variable already. And you would see, actually, the block view makes 77k more than the premium view. Right, because this is largely due to the PSF being 130 PSF higher for the premium facing. Alright, next we have the low floor versus the high floor. 1807 versus 4107. Both were sold in January and March 2023 respectively. Right, bought in the same period of July and May 2014. So we remove the timing variables and we ensure that they are all counted for respectively. And you will realize the purchase price of an 1807 is only at 1464 PSF, while the 4107 purchase price was at 1801 PSF, about a 340 PSF difference in terms of entry price. Alright, and in terms of the exit price, you will see 4107 exiting at 2148 PSF, while 1807 sold at 2032 PSF. Did the higher floor really sell for a higher price? It did, but because of the much higher entry price, end up the lower floor actually made 152k more than the higher floor. So you can see this is more of the entry price attribute at play. So if we move on to another example, which is Sterling Residences, a more recent example, you will see the 3-bedroom compact 883 square feet, 3230 versus 1830. A high floor versus a mid floor unit, right? Many people will say, wow, buy the high floor, maybe actually better. But if we look at the profitability, it has largely got to do with the purchase price again. So for 1830, it was entered at 1680 PSF versus 3230 entered at 1848 PSF with a difference of 168 PSF. And you see from there, 1830 was sold at 2311 PSF, while 3230 was sold at 2317 PSF. And if we look at the profit difference, 143k profit difference, the low floor making higher than the high floor. So you can see this is largely due to the entry price at play again. So now moving forward, we compare another scenario, which is a facing scenario. So we see this development is actually Lakeview with 1416 being a 3-bedder at 1141 square feet, sold at 1.792 mil on 19 September 2022. Direct block facing, and it was bought at 1.388 mil. Versus 0641, a 1163 square feet unit, sold at 1.728 mil on 18 June 2021. Bought at 1.55 mil on 11th May 2015, a 1-year difference. Alright, you can see from there, their entry price is higher by about 150k. And with that in mind, the block view on average purchase between 1100 PSF to 1200 PSF and sold at 1004 to 1600 PSF in between that range. And versus the unblocked view, where they entered on an average of 100 PSF higher at 1300 PSF and sold at a similar PSF of about 1500 PSF. In the end, it resulted in a 217k profit difference for the block view. So this has all largely to do with entry price. Right, but does it really mean that the high floors and the perfect views or the premium views don't make money? Actually, like I said, it has got to do with the entry price. So the key question to ask also is, can high floors still profit or not? Actually, in recent changes in the market, a change in consumer behavior, we start to realize a different trend because the affordability in the market is getting higher and higher. In the way people who's buying properties as a need want to treat themselves better because it is for their own family lifestyle, it is for their own enjoyment. And with higher affordability, and since the market already quite high to begin with already, might as well, since I can afford it and it's a need, I might as well just pay more for my own family lifestyle and my own needs lor. So in that sense, we start to realize that consumers on the ground are starting to go for the higher floors the ease of resellability for the higher floors are a lot easier than the lower floors today. And of course, we start to see the high floors making a bit more profit than the lower floors. But again, this is largely due to the entry price, which we'll deep dive into it in the next few slides. So, important thing to take note, it is a need. That's why people may be willing to pay more for it to meet their family needs. Most importantly, no matter how expensive it is, they will still buy in a way. But most importantly, can they afford it or not? Alright, of course, as I say, entry price plays a part. So let's look at Sterling residences, for example. A 2-bedroom with similar attributes. You have 12th floor and 34 floors. The 12th floor is 1763 PSF. The 34th floor is 1799 PSF. Only about $20 to $30 PSF difference. Remember what we mentioned? Entry price. And if you look at their sales, the lower floor at 12th floor was sold at 2384 PSF versus the higher floor, which was sold at 2478 PSF. Naturally, people know that higher floor commands a premium. They will still pay the premium in accordance to the ascending floor level. Alright, that's a natural thing amongst consumer, willing buyer, willing seller. But because of the entry price being quite close to each other, end up you see the high floor profiting 518K versus the lower floor at 475K. Despite being higher, they still profit more than the low floor. Alright, and the key thing to take note is this: which one is easier to sell? A 34th floor with a better view or a 12th floor? I think the 34th floor will have an ease of resellability. So 2% premium for 22 floors higher, yet made 9% more profits than the lower floor. But yet this time around with an ease of resellability. Alright, so next we have another example here within the same building itself, Sterling residences. Okay, why we use this example is because Sterling itself has about 40 levels, so we can really see the effects of the floor level difference versus the pricing, and we can then capitalize on this school of thought. So if we look at it, we have another example down here, both in the same block, level 2 versus level 34. Level 2 entered at 1532 PSF. Level 34 entered at 1754 PSF. This is about 200 PSF difference. Alright, but you can see from here, the exit price of the level 2 is 2095 PSF versus the exit price of the high floor unit at 34th floor, 2427 PSF. 14.5% premium for 32 floors higher, yet made 19.5% more profits than the lower floor. But this time around, I want to ask you one question. Second floor easier to sell or 34th floor easier to sell? I think we all know the answer again now. Alright, so we move on to another example in the Clementi, which is Clairvaughn. Alright, a 3-bedroom. We compare the 11th floor and the 36th floor. The 11th floor get in at 1575 PSF versus the 36th floor at 1736 PSF. Eventually, they exit at 1989 PSF and 2320 PSF respectively. With that in mind, you can see the amount of profit difference. The lower floor profited 396K versus the higher floor at 559K. A 10.2% premium paid for a higher floor still profit more than a lower floor. Next, we have in a similar development, the 4 bedrooms at Clairvaughn itself as well. Second floor versus 32 floor, 1498 PSF versus 1615 PSF. About 100 PSF difference. Not too much, alright, but look at the exit pricing difference. 1857 PSF versus 2110 PSF respectively, 567K of profit versus 783K of profits, 14% premium for higher floor, yet made 38.09% more profit than the lower floor. So if you compare the previous examples just now, why the lower floors will actually make more than the higher floors? Alright, actually I think it's the entry price at play, like what I always mention. The benchmark should be anything below 15 to 16% price difference for the low floor versus the high floor. I think it's quite safe because based on the pattern that we observe, the premium between a low floor versus a high floor has always been about 15% and below. Maybe some slight deviations due to maybe better attributes, better facing or what, maybe we can go up to 16 to 18% difference. I think anything below 20% difference in terms of the price of low floor versus high floor, I think the high floor stands a greater chance for ease of resellability, but not only that, a higher profit, right? Because if we observe the previous example like the Commonwealth Towers one, it is a 23% price difference, some even 25 to 30%. That's the main reason why probably buying a low floor or a block view due to a significantly lower entry price will end up profiting more. So this is how we gauge on the unit selection entry price. Doesn't mean that high floor means cannot profit, but doesn't mean that low floor next time you won't profit. It is all due to the entry price. And here I've listed quite a fair bit of examples for you to catch this thought process and concept so that you know how to make a decision of your own. Next, how can we miss out the second most important factor, which is the layout? Layout is the one that affects livability factors. So with that in mind, the layout itself is the key to having a clear exit strategy after we clear the entry price. Alright, so now a good one bedroom layout will be something like 3 Cascaden, which I have down here. 452 square feet, a designated white space and living and dining, reasonable size for balcony and AC, no wastage of space within the corridor. Alright, versus this one in 2011 where we have Devonshire Residences, 506 square feet, even bigger than what we have at 3 Cascaden. But can you see there is not even a designated space for a living cum dining? And from there, it is an open concept kitchen that takes up quite a fair bit of the living room space. But because it has multiple bay windows in the living room, the toilet, as well as a planter and a balcony bigger than the master bedroom with a bomb shelter, the livability factor has some questions down here, and that is the main reason why this may not be such a good layout, because there's so much wastage of space and people are actually paying for it. Alright, and this layout itself can't do much for a person staying inside. So it cannot fit a proper living and dining, comes with bay windows, planter that is, and balcony that is even bigger than the master bedroom itself. And if we look at the numbers, it totally translates into the effects of it. You can see with 3 Cascaden, bought in 2019 February at 3495 PSF, which was record breaking back then. In the end, today is sold at 3982 PSF with a profit of 220k. Both are freehold. Alright, so you can see how layout really affects the profitability because the livability factors are always in check. As compared to Devonshire Residences, where the average PSF bought was 24 to 25 PSF in 2011. First of all, it was already a peak price to begin with. Alright, but the next thing is, you can see because the livability factors are not in check, you can see from there they end up selling at 21 to 22 PSF, making an average loss of 150k to 200,000. And one is a significantly higher PSF at 3,400 PSF, such as 3 Cascaden. People already will scratch head and say 3 Cascaden confirm lose money one. But you see, once the livability factors are in check and they tick the boxes, in the end they still profit and sell for 3,982 PSF. As compared to one that entered significantly lower at 25 PSF, in the end still made losses at 22 PSF. When the market can actually accept 3,982 PSF for 3 Cascaden. Right, now we move on to the 2 bedrooms. What is a good 2 bedroom layout? Here we have an example of ideal 2 bedroom layout. As close to 700 square feet as possible. Of course, we understand that with harmonization in play right now, it has dropped to 689 square feet. So that's why we say this is an ideal range. Enclosed or enclosable kitchen, designated living / dining, and a balcony space to keep up with the trend of the market. Dumbbell or traditional layout is suitable, no excessive balcony space or AC ledge. But of course, with harmonization now, we don't get that. Now, these are examples of bad layouts. You can see from here, there's a yard space that actually belongs to the balcony, overlapping labeling of spaces. Alright, no enclosable kitchen, galley kitchen with a dining and living. Bedroom 2 and master bedroom. Bedroom 2 can't even fit a queen bed with multiple AC ledges, bay windows, and planter. How is this even livable? Next, we have here another one that's 804 square feet, big balcony, overlapping designation of spaces, living, dining. Then suddenly you say you have a study in the living when actually this should just be a living area. Alright, but developers try to squeeze in a space and then sell you as 2+ study. This is of course a very forceful way to try to push up the category, to try to create a selling angle. From there you can see the second bedroom can't fit a queen bed. The master bedroom is pretty okay, but you got an excessive AC ledge, alright, and of course very long corridor spaces which could have converted into more livable space. So now you understand what is a good layout of a 2 bedroom and versus a bad layout of 2 bedroom. Here we have a recent example will be Affinity versus Florence. So you can see based on Affinity itself, it's a 732 square feet, galley kitchen, again an unnecessary classification of space, having a study which was supposed to be a dining area in usual layouts. Now they squeeze in a study down here and then they squeeze a dining just before the living. Alright, so with that in mind, that is an unnecessary classification just to try to upsell you. Alright, then of course you have your master bedroom and your second bedroom with a balcony. Alright, still livable. Alright, that's why they still profit, But if we compare to something like Florence Residences, where you get an enclosable kitchen for a 2-bedder, a designated dining area, and then a separated living, 2 bedrooms that very clearly able to fit queen size bed and above, and then followed by a normal size balcony. Right, and if you compare these two layouts together, both are about the same size, 732. In fact, Affinity is bigger. They should have done better with the space provided. 732 versus 721, and you can see these are the profitability difference. Average profits for Florence Residence is about 250k, while Affinity is only an average of 182k. Actually, if back then you ask the consumers, they would actually identify Affinity as being a more atas area. Alright, but end up in the end, Florence, which is in a slightly more secluded location, ends up making more. This is largely due to the layout livability. Next, we have the 3 bedrooms. These are examples of ideal 3 bedroom layouts. You can see from here, there are 900 square feet for the 3 bedroom compact. The 3 bedroom premiums mostly are above 1000 square feet. But of course, with harmonization today, you will probably see a slight decrement in terms of the sizes. But just bear that in mind. These are the few attributes based on what I'm showing you are good examples of 3 bedroom layout. Alright, designated living and dining areas, master can fit king, bedrooms all can fit queen, enclosed kitchen, most ideal is the utility, yard plus utility or a store. In fact, actually everybody, these examples, if you give a good guess, you'll be able to identify this is one of the new launch projects, but I'm not going to tell you what. Put in the comments below and tell me which development is this actually. Alright, this is an example of bad 3 bedroom layouts or unideal 3 bedroom layouts. You can see this is 936 square feet. The balcony is actually in a very odd shape, so even if you were to try to use that space, it would just be plain dead space and plain wasted space. Coming in from the main entrance, you already waste some space in the corridor space. An unnecessary classification of space again, they put the dining in the kitchen area and it does not have an enclosed kitchen. How is this even livable? With the 3rd bedroom unable to fit a queen bed. Alright, and then of course, because of the fragmentation of space, the living room becomes very limited. Next thing, this is another layout that you see from here, an unnecessary void space. Coming in from the main entrance, you waste in that long corridor with an open galley kitchen. The dining again in the kitchen, because there's no other place to put it. Your way to the living room is very congested in that space, followed by a 3rd bedroom being unable to fit a queen bed, and then of course even the 2nd bedroom cannot fit queen bed with very large AC ledge and excessive balconies in the master and the living. And with the same 936 square feet, why are they not able to give what we have in the previous 3 bedroom compact layouts that I show you, which were ideal? And because of this, let's compare the profitability. We have Queen's Peak versus Sterling Residences. Both are in the same area. Queen's Peak is 936 square feet. Sterling Residences is 980 square feet. Right, you can see from here, this is the layout that I was talking about. The dining is within the kitchen area. The 3rd bedroom can't fit a queen. The balcony is a dead space because of its odd shape. But as compared to Sterling Residences itself, there is an enclosed kitchen, can fit a 6-seater dining set, walking into a very wide living room, even has a store, and then the 3 bedrooms, all 3 bedrooms can fit a queen. Right, it's just a few square feet difference only, you know. Right, and with that in mind, you can look at the profitability. Average 438k profit for Sterling Residences, despite higher PSF entry price because of a newer launch, but made more than a lower entry price. Queen's Peak, on the other hand, which was an older development, had a lower PSF but end up making less profits of 299k, largely due to the layout again. Now we move on to the 4 bedrooms. Now this is a very interesting case study. You can see from here, these are examples of good 4 bedroom layout. Best for 4 bedrooms is always to get the landscape layouts, because that is the one that actually, most of the time, because 4 bedrooms are given the best views, by getting a landscape layout, you get the widest frontage within your unit to enjoy that kind of panoramic view depending on the location of your development. Alright, whether is it pool view, greenery view, whatsoever, having that landscape layout enjoys that wide frontage anyway. So you can see from here, these are ideal versions of 4 bedroom layout, where we can see as you enter the main entrance, there is a dry kitchen, wet kitchen, a good store, and then of course a landscape layout living, 3 bedrooms on the left with a 4th bedroom on the opposite side, so that you don't make your corridor too long. This is one of the ideal 4 bedroom layout. Here we have another 1346 square feet one, where again, dry, wet kitchen with a store flexibility, and then you have 1 bedroom on the right side and 3 other bedrooms on the left side, forming a dumbbell layout suitable for multi-gen living. And of course, you got a much bigger 1572 square feet. Again, you can see this is one of the more ideal 4-bedroom layouts. What about unideal 4-bedroom layouts? Here we have a 1335 square feet. Remembering the ideal examples I show you, you can see this one, why are they not able to give you a landscape layout? They got excessive long corridor. Why the 4th bedroom can't fit a queen size bed despite being the same size? And then of course some space wasted in the foyer area. Now we have another comparison of a 1302 square feet. You got big AC ledges, long yard utility in a separated location compared to the kitchen. Alright, and then you got another weird balcony shape, and then of course, this one at least still give you a landscape layout living. But this one I wouldn't classify as landscape. This is mixture between landscape cum portrait. So you don't get that wide frontage the minute you enter your house. You still get that very long and deep feeling, which doesn't bring out the grandeur of a 4-bedroom. With that long corridor and of course excessive balconies and an AC ledge. So these are impractical 4-bedroom layouts. And if we are going to compare right now, I'm going to use the Crest versus Principal Garden. Now the Crest itself is meant to be a luxury property. It is definitely much closer to Redhill MRT as compared to Principal Garden. The difference in terms of timing to walk to the MRT is at least a 7 to 10 minutes difference. Alright, and everybody would have thought that the Crest would have profited more than Principal Gardens. And if we look at this, it's the 4-bedroom layout of the Crest, which is at 1518 square feet versus Principal Garden at 1572 square feet. Can we see what's the difference? They market the Crest as a dual key layout. Hey, we must understand what consumer needs are. Remember, buying property in Singapore is a need. Livability factor is in check. You people already need to pay so much for a 4-bedroom. Suddenly you go and make a dual key out of it. The people who need the 4 bedrooms for their family needs cannot break their family apart to just go into a dual key. They're already paying so much for a 4-bedroom. Now you suddenly break it into a dual key. The demand drops significantly because the livability factors are not in check. As compared to Principal Gardens, walking in from the private lift, take note, private lift, this is also another factor that will ensure clear exit strategy because there's not many 4-bedrooms that have private lift. Alright, you can see from here, the minute we enter Principal Gardens, you are greeted with this wide frontage landscape layout, and then from there all the 4 bedrooms are tucked in one side with your utility, your store, so on and so forth. And let's look at the profitability difference. Principal Gardens entered at 1,600 PSF on average. People would think that, Principal Garden entry price must be lower, that's why I make more. Actually look at the Crest entry price, also 1,631 PSF, somewhere closer to MRT. So by right, normally the consumer would then equate that the Crest should make more. But in the end, what happened? Because of this layout difference, end up the Principal Gardens make average of 762k profits as compared to the Crest making 355k profits only. Hey, what was supposed to be a luxury property closer to the MRT, in the end profiting 300 to 400k lesser, or at least Principal Gardens made double of what the Crest made. But yet they are further away from MRT with a longer walking distance, and they are classified as a so-called mass market property. So everybody, can we see how layout actually makes a big difference as it concerns livability factors, in turn concerning the exit strategy. Next is demand and supply. Recognizing that Singapore properties vision is a need, then we must go for places that has high demand, but yet, of course, ideally lower supply. Alright, and if we look at that in that sense, how to broaden your audience to make sure your demand is always there. The key question always comes in is, with a limited budget of 2 million, should you go for a 2-bedroom central property or a 3-bedroom OCR? So here we have Riverfront Residences, 915 square feet, 0770. Bought at 1.193 mil on 5th July 2018. Sold at 1.65 mil on 7th Feb 2024 with an average profit of 457k profits. Down payment 330k. Versus, within the same period of time, the Trevor, which is an RCR property, 700 square feet, unit 1217, bought at 1.113 mil on 18 August 2018, sold at 1.4 mil on 29 Jan 2024 with profit of 287k, down payment of 307k, $370. Now, this example is actually to show you one thing. It is to simulate the similar scenario that everybody always face. With the same budget, should I go for something that is nearer to city with better locale? Or should I go for somewhere further away but yet I can get a 3 bedrooms? Alright, because if I go closer to city with the same limited budget, I may need to drop the bedroom count. Right? I move further out, I can own a 3 bedroom. Like I say, buy Singapore property is a need. So if we go for some place that has high homestay demand and people have no choice but to buy because it is a need, then am I right to say your profitability will be higher? One more thing to take note, riverfront residences is actually above 1,000 units. So in terms of supply wise, it's not that lower, but because it is a need, the livability factors are in check, people will still buy. So if you look at that, entered and sold both 1 month apart of each other, 22k down payment difference, but yet 170k profit difference. You wish that there was somebody here giving you this video or giving you this advice to say, hey, push it a little bit, down pay a little bit more, but yet you get a 3-bedroom, your future profit is actually close to 170k difference. You wish that somebody is here to do the consultation. And that's why if you need advice like that, please remember to contact me, because I want to give you something that has very clear exit strategy. Alright, so 3-bedroom has a higher homestay demand and lower overall supply. Better exit strategy in the future. Numbers speak for itself. Next, we always have this tussle. Within the same development, should I go for a 3-bedroom compact with good facing that costs the same price as a 3-bedroom premium but with a block facing? Again, demand and supply. Which one will have a higher demand because of livability needs? Alright, so if we look at that, this is an exact example. 0309, which is a pool view, 3-bedroom, 958 square feet, bought at 1.238 mil at 1293 PSF. Pool facing sold at 1.59 mil. Versus the unit 1217, which is kind of like a block view facing Infinity Condo. 3-bedroom premium, 1066 square feet, bought at 1.368 mil at 1284 PSF. Block view facing Infinity Condo sold at 1.83 mil. Right, so if we look at the profitability difference, it resulted in a 110k profit difference for the block view. 0309 bought 1293 PSF, sold 1660 PSF. 1217 bought 1284 PSF, sold 1717 PSF. 3-bedroom premium block view end up making 110k more than a 3-bedroom compact pool view. Alright, so always a struggle. Should you pay more for a better facing but yet smaller unit? 1217 is higher floor, purchased at similar PSF as 0309, low floor but pool view. Due to high homestay demand, 3-bedroom premium block view made more profits than the 3-bedroom compact pool view. Alright, so next, this is another example, Treasures at Tampines. 3-bedroom compact versus 3-bedroom premium. Now I understand a lot of people are running on tight budgets, which I totally understand, but sometimes you just need that right advice and you will make that leap of faith into it. And is the leap of faith worth it? With calculated risk, I think it is. And is it too much to ask? Because based on the few examples that I show you, the down payment difference is probably 30 to 50k. Yeah, maybe it's a bit of stretch, alright, given the tight scenarios that you all have, but maybe you also wish that there was somebody who tell you, because the profits are going to be a lot more significantly different. So this is another example where we can see the 3-bedroom compact of Treasures, 915 square feet versus 1033 square feet. You can see this is of course the open concept layout with no yard or utility, as compared to the 1033 square feet with a yard, utility and enclosed kitchen. Now this meets the livability needs. And if we look at it, a 3-bedroom premium, 1.362 mil, bought on 24th May 2020, sold on 13 March 2024 with a profit of 448k, one of the top 3 highest profitability for 3-bedrooms in the entire project. Down payment 379k versus a 3-bedroom compact, 915 square feet, 0819, bought at 1.218 mil on 14 June 2020, sold on 19 July 2023. Profit 182k, down payment 337k. A 41k difference in down payment, but resulted in a 266k, more than a $250,000 profit difference. Due to homestay demand, 3-bedroom premium is more suitable due to the helper and storage, which meets the livability needs, which results in better and higher exit strategy. So with that in mind, you wish that there was somebody who was there to tell you, hey bro, go for it, just 41k, maybe we eat one less meal a day, or we do a bit more savings in a way, or we try to talk to developer to drag out the completion so that you can accumulate some savings. But in a way, your exit strategy becomes much better. This calculated risk itself is definitely worth it, right? And you wish that there was somebody that you were able to consult. And that's why with our frameworks here, I'm trying to show you how to identify good unit selection. Next is the timing of exit. How do we determine a good timing of exits for your unit? Alright, so here we have another example, which is Sims Urban Oasis, 0831 versus 0931, 22nd October 2021, versus 24th June 2022, a difference of 8 months. You look at their exit price. Both bought at 1.35 mil and 1.356 mil, a 6,000 difference respectively. But if you look at it just by selling 8 months different, 0831 sold at 1.579, 0931, which was sold 8 months later, sold at 1.68 mil. Close to 110k difference in profit. So how do we exit? Alright, here's the numbers. We can see time of sales affect profit. How to determine? Of course, we got no crystal ball, but of course we got some numbers to look at so that we are able to ascertain the sweet spot for you to exit and re-enter into your next purchase. You don't want to be this person that lose out on an additional 110k profit, but you also don't want to be the person waiting too long and you miss your next purchase opportunities. So where is that sweet spot and how can we determine? So we can see from here, this is the unsold inventory chart. 0831, which was sold in October 2021, means they will have started marketing in the third quarter of 2021. We can see based on the unsold inventory in the market back then, we have about 17,500 units of new launches left, versus where we see 0931, which was sold in June 2022. By then, it was only 14,000 new launch units left in the market. Alright, with lesser new launches to choose from, what will people go for? Resale ma? Because no more new developments to choose from, the buyers have no choice but to buy resale. And that will push up your resale demand, you will end up making more profits. Alright, and with that in mind, of course, 3,500 units to you doesn't seem like a big number, but if you divide by an average number of 500 units per condo, hey, that means that 7 projects actually sold out. So as we are evaluating your exit strategy, what we need to look at is the unsold inventory of new developments that are currently in the market. If it has dropped below that 14,000 or 15,000 mark, I think that's a good time for you to actually determine your exit. So when you are actually trying to determine your exit that time, always check for the unsold inventory. The higher the unsold inventory of new launch, the more competition that you're going to face as a resale buyer. Alright, but of course, you don't want to be holding too long until you miss your next purchase opportunity. So, but of course, you don't want to be losing out on a 100k profit. So, we are here to find out the sweet spot for you in that sense. But this is one factor that you need to look at to help determine your exit strategy. Finally, the essentials exit strategy. I think the first 4 points deal with the micro factors of how to choose your unit, from entry price, facing, demand and supply, and then of course the timing of exit. Alright, but now you need to determine who is going to buy from you. I'm sure if you look at the surrounding of the development, you realize there's HDB upgraders, you realize there's some condo upgraders as well that can actually buy over your unit. The key question to ask is, can they even afford it or not? Alright, so I've got this metric down here that I use to actually determine that. So for example, let's say we use Pine Tree Hill as an example. So Pine Tree Hill, 4 bedrooms is about 3.2 to 3.3 mil. Some slightly earlier, 3.1 mil for the lower floors. Who is going to buy from us? I give my buyers or consumers an example. The Trizon 2-bedroom can buy from us actually. How are we going to determine? So we're going to use this. I have this calculation down here where we look at the purchase price of Trizon 2 bedrooms at 1.604 mil. Their selling price at this current moment for the average transaction is about 2.27 mil. Profit 665k. Alright, holding period 13 years. Why is this holding period important? Because we can determine the principal amount paid over the last 13 years. So assuming they take 80% loan, 20% down payment, they would have put in a capital of 320k based on 1.6 mil of purchase price. They hold it for 13 years, means the average principal based on a 2% interest rate is $2,600 saved per month. Hold it for 13 years means they will have accumulate 406k of capital within. We add 406k capital plus the 20% down payment plus the profit of 665k, we will have 1.392 mil on hand if they were to sell the unit today based on a Trizon 2-bedroom. Now, if your 4-bedroom you bought at 3.1 mil, you want to aim for a 500k minimum profit. We tell you the 2-bedroom upgraders can buy. Is it true? We look at the 3.6 mil based on today's down payment. It's already at 1.055 mil. This Trizon upgrader 2-bedroom, if they sell their unit today, the cash proceeds that they get back is already at 1.392 mil. Already able to pay for your future exit price. Isn't this a good affirmation that this group of people that we identified can really buy from you? Now, we shoot for the stars. We want to sell the 4 bedrooms at 4 million. The down payment of the 4 million 4 bedrooms is actually at 1.179 mil. Alright, now these people, the Trizon 2-bedroom upgraders, today they sell their unit in today's pricing, they are already able to pay for your future exit price down payment at 4 mil. doesn't this give you a lot more certainty that these people that we identified for you can really buy over your unit, and that's your future resale buyer? Now we move on. Of course, you may argue, hey, it's Trizon 2 bedrooms. How about the HDB flats? Let's take a look at a 4-room flat Clementi HDB upgrader. The Pine Tree Hill 3 bedrooms, let's say to upgrade to a Pine Tree Hill 3 bedrooms, if we look at the purchase price of the Clementi flat in the past, it used to be an average of about 400k. Today, on average, they are selling at about 980k based on the last 10 average transactions. Profit 580k, 11 years of holding period, assuming a 5% cash, 20% down payment, 75% loan, right? If they take bank loan, for example, all right? Maybe they take HDB loan, but never mind, we just calculate based on that. They will have a capital inside of about 100k, and then they accumulate over the past 11 years of $560 principal per month, they will have another 73k inside. We add all of this together, when they sell their house today, based on today's transaction, they will already get back a 753k cash. Let's say you buy your 3 bedrooms at 2.2 to 2.3 mil, you want to make an average profit of 500k and sell it at 2.8 mil conservatively. The down payment of that 2.8 mil would be about 800k. You already have 753k cash out. Am I right to say over the years they must have their own personal savings as well? To save up 50k over the last 10 years, I think is very much possible. Am I right to say if they were to sell their HDB today based on the current prices, they are already able to pay for the future exit price down payment? Now, if we push it a little bit further, let's say we want 3-bedroom Pine Tree Hill to be sold at 3 million, pushing it more. The down payment will be 869k. Now you give them another 4 years more. Am I right to say these HDB upgraders will still be able to cough out as they continue to save along the way? Again, their current exit price, the cash proceeds that they receive, is already well enough to pay for your future exit price down payment, indicating clear affordability. Now, to wrap this up, how about the 5-room flats in the Clementi area to pay for your 4-bedroom Pine Tree Hill? So you look at the 5-room HDB, they were bought at about 500 to 600k back then. Now the average price is 1.3 mil. The profit 800k with an average holding period of about 6 years. Again, we apply the down payment to determine the capital that they put in the front. They will probably have about 125k put in the front, 1,100 per month principal accumulation they hold for 6 years is about 84k, right? And if we look at that, they will have a cash proceeds of 1.009 mil. To sell your 4-bedroom Pine Tree Hill at 3.6 mil, you will need a down payment of 1.055 mil. Am I right to say their cash proceeds is already well enough to pay for your future exit price down payment? Now we push it a little bit further and try to exit at 4 mil for your Pine Tree Hill 4 bedrooms. The down payment is 1.179 mil. Am I right to say it's just about 160k difference, which they were given about 10 years to accumulate because they already hold it for 6 years, plus another 4 years more of SSD period for Pine Tree Hill, alright, that they can probably save up 100k over the last 10 years, that's about 10k per year, and I'm pretty sure with their own personal savings, they were able to bridge it. Another classic example where their current sales proceeds, based on the current selling price, is already able to pay for your future exit price, and thus this affirms the affordability of your surrounding buyers that we identified for you. Alright, so now of course, since we have identified the clear framework of how you should be choosing your unit, your selection essentials for unit today, alright, of course, based on the URA policies and improvements, basically there are not that many bad products in the market anymore. Basically now you throw a stone at the new launches. Don't you realize that there's not much bad things to highlight or bad layouts in the market to nitpick on? Maybe sometimes they have weird placements of living or dining, but the livability factors are still kept in check. So that is the key to sustainable pricing and clear exit strategy. But am I right to say I can give you the best product and the best unit, and if you still can't overcome the market obstacles and the market sentiments, and you can't even make sense of the current market direction right now, am I right to say you won't even take that step forward, right? And that's why we also have another framework called the ARPS system or the QPE Framework, where we can help you see your unit that you are about to buy, how it looks like in front of a resale buyer, so that you can determine a clear exit strategy. Based on what we talked about previously, they were all logical based, but we know resale buyers by the time is all more emotional. So with that in mind, our ARPS framework or QPE system is able to showcase to you how your unit will actually look like in front of a buyer. So finally, to wrap it up, set up a one-to-one consultation with me anytime. Alright, my contact can be in the QR code down here. Feel free to contact me anytime, because we can have the best product and the best unit. But if you just can't overcome the market sentiments and the market obstacles, no matter how good a product I give you, you still will not be able to convince yourself to go for that call to action. And that's what I am here for you, to facilitate that thought process, to help you make sense of the numbers and the so what and the how to be a buyer in today's market, so that we can run through this whole unit selection framework, so that you and I will be doing homework together to determine the right unit, the right timing for you. And coupled with our QPE framework, this is to ensure added security in your portfolio and a safety net. So remember to tune in to our next episode where we'll run through the ARPS system, so that you will have clarity in your unit selection process. Remember to like, share and subscribe if you have enjoyed the content so far. Today is a bit dry, but remember to keep me motivated and like, share and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one in our Essentials channel.